First of all, thank you to Generali, because I'm very honored to be here. I usually attend all the presentations because I have to learn many things. So I'm with you. I'm not here. I'm there. I saw on the Times, but also the Sole 24 Ore reported that figure, picture that I think was very nice, and we saw the Neanderthal coming up to the human, the human that we are now, if we are human, because sometimes I think that we should be a little bit better. But what they were showing that before, you needed to study for a certain part of your life, and then you could abandon it and start to work. Now you study at the beginning of your life. So starting from Neanderthal, they were coming to the man and showing that the man is born and goes to death with a huge book that gets bigger and bigger in his life. So we really have to study all the time. And this is a very wonderful part of the job I do. What do I do? I've been in the exchange for a very long time, and I only have to say that Italian Exchange is part of the London Stock Exchange group. I say that because then I will talk about the guidance, the guide we've made for the non-financial information for the ESG reporting. When I say we, I talk like London Stock Exchange Group. So thank you again. I like risks, so I don't know why I prepared it in Italian. Don't ask me why. So I'll try to make it understandable for you. The last thing before getting right into the non-financial, do you know that MIB is very important for us because it's the name of our main equity index. So now it's FTSE MIB. Yesterday it was MIB 30. So for us, MIB is even more important than every other. I would like to start my speech with some questions. First of all, why do we call it in Italian informazione di carattere non finanziario? And then the second is, what is non-financial information about? And the third one, is the non-financial information useful, or is it necessary? A better way, I will say, due for companies which are listed in the exchange, but also for companies which are not listed. Well, the answer is, first of all, non-financial information is perfect in English because you have financial and non-financial. In Italian, you have contabile and not non-financial, extracontabile, metacontabile. As they said this morning, and Generali told me some time ago when we first talked about the integrated reporting, they would say, we call it pre-financial. It's perfect, but not non-financial. It has a financial impact, so we don't have to call it non-financial. But this was probably an error of the translation. What I say that its name are very important. So even if we call it like we have to call it because of the law, the most important thing is that we know exactly what we're talking about. Second question, what is the non-financial about? Well, we heard almost everything this morning, so I don't have to add many things to what it was said. I will say just go through what they said in a different way, and maybe pointing out something about investors. Non-financial information is not only about environmental, social, and bribery. Why do I say that? Because when we talk about the Directive 50, which was implemented now in Italy and is starting to oblige company to make a non-financial declaration, as referred to the exercise that started at the beginning of January this year. When we talk about that directive, it seems like the very important thing are only these. When they are material, this is good, that not only the legislature actually didn't say it very properly, but CONSOB underlined that these issues are important only when they are material. If they are not material, we don't want to deal with them. And are they the only ones? This is my answer, no. Why not? Because other issues, when relevant for understanding the business of the company, its development, the performance, the position, and the impact of the activity are even more important. Let me give you some examples. You know what this is? This is the Kodak Sustainability Report of the year 2006. So it was in March 2007. I tell you what it says here at the very beginning, a letter from management. Over the last 3 years, Kodak has met unprecedented challenges in the company's history, and we are becoming a stronger company. We are becoming a stronger company in the process. Moreover, we are within sight of completing what will be one of the most remarkable turnarounds in the corporate history. During this period, a new Kodak has emerged, a digital company with strong growth prospects in numerous digital businesses. These efforts to remark a new Kodak in the digital age continue. We will continue to make the changes required for our future success. 2010, it disappeared. So why did it disappear? Not because they didn't get the change that was coming in digital. They all transformed their products. Unfortunately, the problem was another. And the real problem, as Harvard Business Review reported, was that they thought that people would make different photos, but they will still stamp photos. So what they had was a wonderful social, which was called Photo. It says, in real life, unfortunately, Kodak used Photo to try to get more people to print digital images. Unfortunately, what they didn't get was that people were moving from digital printing, from printing to just sharing photos online on the Photo, so on the social, which was sold for 25 million, so for nothing. This what means something, means that not only companies have to include another range, huge range of risks and opportunities apart from environment and social and governance. Not only that, even many others, what we call our mega trends, right? And these mega trends are, was a mega trend for sure in technology, but then we have other mega trends which are cybersecurity. We like to talk about it, only even security if you want to talk about, or political change, or change in rules and regulations. So what company have to do? They have to change mind. Let me give two other examples, which is British Airways. Probably most of you know that on the 27th and 28th of May 2017, this year, they stopped all the flight in Heathrow and Gatwick for both days. Why? Because, as company CEOs confirmed, he said the IT operational system had been affected by a data center power supply. And in a follow-up, he said the problem lasted just for a few minutes, but a backup system had failed to kick in and pick up the slack as intended. So we have to deal with a very different world from what we were used to deal with. This is the real next step. So I finished the third question and then I tell you what I think about it. The third question was, is the non-financial useful or is it necessary or due? Not only is necessary, not only is useful, but it's a huge opportunity. It's a huge opportunity that companies should not lose. And why they should not lose? Because in the very, they should use it in the very best way. Because as it was said, even in our guide, I told you before, and then I tell you what it is exactly, we say that you have to reveal the full picture. This morning it was said something like that, to give the whole story, to make the whole journey. So we in the company have to reveal this new full picture. Why to reveal the full picture? Let's go back for a while. In Italy, of course, I know Italy. I don't know the other countries so well. So I talk about what I partly know. We used to have information about profit and loss and about assets and liabilities. So let's say informazione contabile. That was the very beginning. Then there was a huge step, financial information, cash flows, and financial position. Then we add the corporate governance report, because corporate governance wasn't there until 2001, 2000, when we issued the first corporate governance code. Then we add something else, which was the shareholder representation, the shareholder stakes, you know. And then the remuneration report, which includes also the policy on remuneration. Now we are going to add the biggest part, the most important part. Why is it the most important? Because to here, we only talk about past, as it was said this morning. We only talk about things that were gone. And as investors, as markets, everyone is interested in what's next. We saw here that even being on the pace, even being there, they missed it. So we have to be forward. We cannot be backward. We don't want to see what was before. Yes, we can look, you know the history. It always tells you a lot, but then you have to go very much backward, to find things that comes and go away and recome again. But just to look 2-3 years past, so what? What's going to be next? So here, as the Commission says, because I like to talk from things that other people say that are very much more important. Here's the Commission, the EU Commission, on the 26th of June 2017, when they issued their guidelines on non-financial reporting. Do you know what they said? They said that non-financial should be about strategic and forward-looking. Companies are expected to disclose relevant information on their business model, including their strategy, objectives. Disclosure should provide insight into the strategic approach to relevant non-financial issues, what a company does, and how and why it does it. Let me go to it's important because it's by disclosing targets, benchmarks, and commitments, a company may help investors and other stakeholders to put its performance in context They want to know what you're talking about, what you're going to do. And last one, forward-looking information enables users of information to better assess the resilience and sustainability of a company development, position, performance, and the impact over time. It also helps users measure the company's progress towards achieving long-term objectives. So now we know what we're talking about. We are asking companies to make a quantum leap. We are asking companies to change mindset, to change culture. What is going to be is not looking backward, not only looking forward, but not looking to the forward short term, but medium and long, possibly very long term. I talked to an investor a few days ago, and I asked, it was a long investor, so I said, which is your view in the next, how long is your view in investment? Do you know which was the answer? 38 to 45 years of investment. So now we understand what we are talking about. You call it non-financial, you can call it ESG, as investors like to call it. You can call it sustainability. It's really sustainability. It's to be here for a long time. So let's say, what I like to see is what does it mean for companies and investors? Then I finish. First of all, companies. Are we sure that companies don't have to look, let's put it in another way. Companies, I don't know how you say in English, società di capitali, I think it's equity companies. Well, equity companies, for our law, for the civil code, they need to make profit to share it with shareholders. So if this is the scope of a company, I've never seen a bylaw of a company which says that the company won't last more than 50 to 100 years. If you put them together, this means creating value over the long term. And the creation of value, profit value, over the long terms is doing what shareholders are interested in. And somebody says, no, you have to say stakeholders. No, I don't want to say stakeholders, because if I do what shareholder wants me to do because the bylaw is decided by them, then I will do indirectly all the satisfaction of all the stakeholders. And this gives you an answer why the legislature introduced in Italy the benefit company. Okay, that's the difference between a benefit company and a società di capitali, equity company. The bylaw is there, is strict. Doesn't let you go around and making charity and philanthropy and all these things. But if you make an intervention over cancer, over whatever you feel, that gives you a feedback in improving the quality of the job, the professionalism of your human resources. You have many ways of doing good to everyone, having a good for the company. This is what investors want. They ask to do what makes good for company, and you can do it in many ways. So a company which is actually behaving this way is a company that gives very much attention to governance, and one of the main points is having diversity into the board. I'm not meaning gender diversity, I'm meaning diversity. I'm meaning like being in Trieste, where you have in 10, 15 kilometers so many different cultures that mix all together here. And I think it's extraordinary. A taxi driver last night told me so many things. I was comparing it to Massimo. Probably I knew in 40 minutes what he studied for many years. So I said, this was incredible. He said, there are so many scientists here. I said, well, it doesn't make me stupire, how do you say? Astonished, because you have cultures here, so many different ones, since ever. So diversity. Business options, you have to make business that are very respectful of what? Of people, of course, of the environment, of bribery, of legalita, of bribery, and you have to make, what the changement is this. Not only looking at risk and opportunity over the business as usual, but looking at risks and opportunity over the huge changements that are coming. So it's a totally different way of looking at things. And all this goes where? Into strategy. So strategy becomes the core. No, I have a few more minutes, 8 minutes. Yeah. So it's strategy is really the core of the company, and this strategy has to be made, as I heard this morning that from Generali, listening to all stakeholders. This is stakeholders, not only stakeholders, because they can give you the insight you need in order to make the best choices. So listening from everyone and then doing what you are supposed to do. Another thing I want to point out is also remuneration. Don't forget that the policy of remuneration, it's a huge, weapon for making sustainability work. Let's go to the other side because I have to finish. Investors. So investors, we know they use ESG instead of, well, it's only using an acronym different from the others, but they have to change themselves. Do you know that in the world we have $79 trillion invested of asset under management, 79 trillion. Over this huge mass of money, almost 25%, less than 25% is invested taking into consideration ESG. And this is too bad, not because ESG is everything. I cannot think of somebody investing without taking into consideration the risks, the opportunities. So something has to change with them also. So why is it so low, the percentage? Why is it only 25%? Let me try to guess. I don't know if I'm right, but probably because if you look at the asset under management, you will find out a very particular thing. Over this 100%, you have between 70 and 80%, which is invested passively. This means that investors just put money on a benchmark, an index. Okay? And why do they do this? It's incredible. They get money to invest passively. Well, because nobody can beat the market over the very long term. This is the point. So what we are looking at now is the changement, the change which is coming for investors as well. And this change will be, first of all, the first move was the three movement. UNPRI 2005, they were, I don't know how many of them agreed to behave, to invest, taking into consideration ESG. This was 2005. Then we have the stewardship code that started to come up. We have the corporate governance code for companies. We have stewardship code for investors. They need to make engagement in companies, looking at governance that company follow. So they have to make commitment. They have to spend money to take into consideration what are they invested in. And third thing will be the shareholder directive that they just changed in 2017 and that will be implemented in 2019. And there you will have the obligation of the engagement made by investors. So investors, by the end, what they have to do. They have to make a longer horizon, and as I like to say, they have to be more patient in their investment. Very last thing is 4 minutes. The natural, I don't know if it's the base in a presupposto, sometimes I don't find the words, I don't know how to say it, but for the interaction between issuer and investors, because it can be stronger, what do we need? We need transparency. We need that companies give transparency over what they are doing into the company. We've heard this morning very wonderful examples of companies that are telling their stories in a very concrete way, not formally, substantially. Everyone wants to understand exactly which are the point of fail, which can be the risk, which can be the opportunity. And you have to tell them where you want to get and just demonstrate, if you didn't get there, why you didn't get there. So it is changing a lot. And in doing this, our guidance, that I have to talk about unless they will kill me, says very, very, let's say, already known things from you. Well, first of all, it's not prescriptive, it's not an obligation. It's only a support to know better and to have an explanation. It's not only oh God, I don't like photos. It's not, I never accept them. It's not made for large companies, it's also for small companies, because we have to take into consideration that the world is moving from big to small. Big companies need small companies, startupper, in order to help them to take them to the right position. No? We saw companies into the exchange that just abandoned the old business and they moved to the new business, and they are still there, unless they would have disappeared. So it says 8 priorities. I only mentioned 4, and it's the relevance, the strategic relevance of the issues. Materiality, we talk about materiality, all of us. The reliability of data, completeness, it was said this morning, because of course they don't want numbers like that. So all the metrics that have to come up, we don't still have metrics for these issues, but they have to come out. And we didn't make a choice of the framework because we like company to choose their own framework, even though the integration reporting has integration thinking, which is the base, as they said this morning, is something which is very well looked from us. That's it.
Thank you so much.